2 years ago today, I released a video on Scooby-Doo Unmasked, and that video wasn't very good, but it was one of my first videos, so cut me some slack. If you're interested in watching it regardless, you can do so up there. I missed it last year, but to bring the tradition back, I'll be taking a look at another Scooby-Doo game, Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights. I actually owned this game growing up. When I was 9 or 10, we went to GameStop back when they had GameCube discs in bags for like $1 to $2 and had a field day with my $20 bill. There was no guarantee they would work though. Fortunately, my copy of Night of 100 Frights did, but after a couple hours of playing, the GameCube error message showed up and I couldn't play any further, which really sucked. That copy's long gone. I've since bought a nice complete copy off eBay to play with my adult eyes to see if it's any good, and this game is not what I remember it being.
This game is not very good. It's not horrible, but it definitely is not worth playing. Now, for a licensed game in 2002, it's pretty solid. It just falls short in a lot of areas, which is disappointing considering it was developed by one of my favorite game developers of all time, Heavy Iron Studios. To be fair, it was only the second game they had developed and their first in the platforming genre, so some problems were to be expected. That being said, you can definitely tell they learned a lot from their mistakes, as future games they developed addressed many of these issues. But for what the game is, it's lacking. At the start, you're thrown outside some haunted mansion and are expected to wander around and figure out where to go. The objective is pretty unclear throughout the entire game, and this is a major flaw. It's not a linear game, but some things need to be done before others, and the game does a poor job at communicating where you should go and what things should be done first. There's multiple upgrades scattered around the areas that allow new ground to be reached in other areas, so while exploring, you'll walk past an obstacle you can't get past without an upgrade, and the game expects you to come back later. This sounds a lot like Battle for Bikini Bottom. You'd walk past things you couldn't interact with without a required upgrade and were expected to come back later with said upgrade to collect the spatula. It works so well in that case because these were all optional. If someone forgot about one of these scenarios, they could still progress in the game, and even if they wanted to collect it regardless, the pause menu listed the spatulas you didn't get yet and allowed you to fast travel to where you wanted to go. There is a fast travel in this game, but it's complicated and you can't get to it from the pause menu. Instead, there's warp gates scattered around the areas that you have to find, but even when you do find one, the map within isn't much help. There's no indicator to where you need to go, nor what objectives you've previously encountered and are now able to complete. Nothing! When you find an upgrade and it's at the end of a section, you're just stuck wondering where you need to go next. You just sit there and really try to recall when you encountered an obstacle that couldn't be passed without this new upgrade. This is absurd. The game expects you to recall everything you've gone through previously to try to remember where this upgrade was mentioned, and even if you do recall something, good luck finding it again. The map just has labels for each room and area, so if you only remember what something looks like, you're still gonna have to search. I guess you could write down the name of the room when you find something, but having to manually write down where you think you'll have to come back to is stupid. I'm not doing that. The progression here is probably the biggest problem with the game. The objectives should be clear and challenging the player should be done through gameplay and well-designed sections, not figuring out where to go. I made it over halfway through the game but couldn't figure out where to go next. I searched and searched and found nothing, so I had to throw the towel. However, it's clear that Heavy Iron realized that this was a problem and learned from their mistake, because in their follow-up, Battle for Bikini Bottom, they limited the challenges that require a certain upgrade, and when they did incorporate them, they made it very clear where it was and how to get back. So, when you do find out where to go, how's the actual gameplay? Well, it's very flawed. For their first attempt at this type of game, they did a lot right, but it's clear that they didn't know what they were doing in terms of platforming mechanics. It feels like you'd expect a licensed game from 2002 to feel. It functions, yes, but it's far from solid. On the ground, he feels very slippery, and when jumping, he falls way too fast. He's got a double jump, so that's a major plus, but he still feels too heavy. While the shadows cooperate most of the time, the dark lighting can make it really hard to see them. I'm not saying that this was a bad choice. It's a spooky game in haunted mansions, so I get it, but that doesn't really mean it's not a problem. And other times, the atrocious camera has the same effect. This is 2002, so atrocious cameras are pretty much a given, but I'm still gonna mention it. You have no control over it whatsoever, and sometimes it refuses to show you the ground you're jumping onto, and as a result, you could completely miss it. The angles really make it hard to make out where you're trying to jump, and makes the depth perception really wonky as well. I get that it's especially hard to make a camera function indoors, and the majority of the game takes place indoors, so it's understandable, but this is another huge teachable moment for Heavy Iron, and in their next game, they allowed the player full control of the camera, and it works really well. Even in indoor sections, they fixed a lot of the issues, and it's fantastic. The aforementioned upgrades are another seemingly major part of the gameplay, but they really don't offer a ton. Most of them are just abilities you should have had from the start and are only restricted to make you come back to certain areas at a later point. When you start the game, you can walk and jump. That's it. The upgrades allow you to double jump, dig up items, charge, ground pound, jump on sticky surfaces, and climb up slopes. They're nothing special, but it's a decent variety of abilities when you unlock them. Until then, his moveset is incredibly lacking and mundane. The level designs themselves are quite bland as well. When you find out where to go and go to conquer these challenges, challenges presented, they aren't much of anything. They're basic and not very innovative whatsoever. It's disappointing. And there aren't any boss fights worth mentioning either. I only fought one for as far as I got, and it was stupid simple. Hit the button when the knight walks next to it, do that for all 4 buttons, and avoid the attacks to win. It's pretty lame and unfortunate considering that's the only fight. Now, I'm only speaking for the first half of the game. I'm certain there's a final boss, but again, I got lost and don't know how to progress. But this is my review of the experience I had with the game. That being said, I have to say, I do think the game captures the feeling of Scooby-Doo pretty dang well. The spooky atmosphere is there in all the locations, and the characters we all know and love are being themselves and lighten things up to give it a fun tone as well. Visually, the game looks great for 2002, like, this is a licensed game that came out that year. So did this one. This is way better than both of those. They really did a great job. And the soundtrack's pretty good too. It's nothing remarkable, but it fits really well with the areas, and I have no complaints with it. They're missing quite a few of the original voice actors for the gang though. Only Fred has his proper voice. However, the replacements don't do a bad job. It's definitely noticeable and can be a little bothersome, but they did go with what they had. Overall, the game isn't good. The objectives aren't clear, the gameplay is subpar at best, the camera is aged very poorly, and the level designs themselves are incredibly basic. But the game holds up pretty well visually, the areas are about as atmospheric as they could be, the soundtrack is solid, and it maintains a feeling of Scooby-Doo throughout.
For the time of its release, this was something special, but looking back on it present day, it's really not worth playing. It's not a bad game, but it's on the lower end of mediocrity. Compared to some of the other licensed games I've made videos about, I'd say it's better than the Spider-Man movie video game, but not as good as Scooby-Doo Unmasked. There's tons of better platformers on the console, and even a better Scooby-Doo game on the system, so I really don't see a point in playing it. Unmasked isn't great, but the platforming's more solid, the camera's a lot better, and the linear progression makes it way easier to beat. This was an important game to the developers though. I think they really got a lot out of it, and it gave them the experience they needed to create one of the best platform games of the time. And with that said, happy Halloween, stay safe, thanks for watching. Oh, and in case you were wondering, of course I played it with the Spice Orange GameCube controller. You gotta stay festive. If you watch the Unmasked video to see the one, I actually have 2 now, so that's pretty awesome. I didn't play it on the Spice Orange system though. That was a Japanese import, and it only plays Japanese games. I tried to mod it, and I actually broke it, so...
If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more and help the channel grow, you should definitely subscribe. It's free for you and means a lot to me. Thank you. What are your thoughts on Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights? Did you play and love it when you were younger? I'd love to know down in the comments. If you've got any feedback for me, also drop that in the comments. I'd really appreciate it and try to improve for next time. Thanks again for watching everyone, I'll catch you in the next one.